G'day friends, family, fellow patriots. Lord Stompy here in Adelaide, South Australia. Welcome. This video is a follow-on video from a recent video I did called The Destruction of Traditional European Core Narrative and Identity. Now that video, I must apologise, I was somewhat tired when I made the video and it was just a little bit sketchy. I wasn't particularly concise. So my apologies. I'm going to do several follow-up videos and this is the first one. Now the subject of that video is a vast subject and all my work as a European nationalist revolves around this subject. I'm basically talking about the long, slow cultural genocide of the European people. Now this is a very, very important and heartbreaking subject for all European nationalists, and this is a problem we have to confront directly. We have to come to terms with. We as a people will have to grapple with this problem. We have to reverse it and not just stop it but reverse it, and we have to resurrect ourselves as a European people back to some kind of glory, some kind of honourable position, because our past was great and things aren't so good now, that we are declining very rapidly as a people, but that can be halted and turned around, and this is something that we must do. We have no choice. We have to stop the decline and reverse it as a people. So there's going to be a lot of blood, sweat, tears and honour, my friends. It's going to be, there's going to be a lot of heartache for us all, but it's going to be a wonderful honour to be able to reverse this situation so future generations can live with dignity and honour again in their European lands. Amen and Deus Vult. So, European cultural genocide. And by cultural genocide, I'm talking about the destruction of our traditional European identity, our European heritage, and really importantly, this is something everyone forgets, is our internal European core narrative of who we are as a people has been utterly corrupted and almost totally destroyed in the last few generations. That was something I was talking about in my recent video. I was talking about how hard it is for, even though modern nationalism in the West is steadily on the rise, and that's a good thing, it seems to be very hard for we white nationalists to cooperate and coordinate. One of the main reasons why this is so is because the European core identity and our personal core narratives have all become so warped, and everyone's now got such a fragmented identity and core narrative that it's essentially, we European people now are living in a form of Babylon. Our modern world is a form of Babylon, and we as a people, we have become so diverse and our core narratives have become so fragmented and scattered in very many different directions that we find it hard to even communicate basic ideas to each other, let alone cooperate. This is a huge problem. This is a problem we have to start addressing in a grown-up way. So this, how did this happen? You know, like, let's just take a basic look at the playing field and how the European people over the last 100 years have come to lose their core identity and their core narrative. Okay, so I was talking in my last video about how if you took if you went to a nation like Ireland, right, and you took the standard you took a group of standard liberal Irish people, like, you know, the kind of liberal people that our system churns out now, with a really fractured identity of themselves, and most of their identity has been manufactured by the education system, by the media, by Hollywood, right? And their opinions, their worldview, their ideas, and their core narrative are just this grotesque, warped version of what a European should be. And to a large extent, it's not even these people's fault. This destruction of our identity, of the very essence of the European soul, our core souls, this warping process has been going on for generations. So we as a people now, even the nationalists who are now trying to fight against liberalism and this disgusting process of cultural destruction that it's wrought on us, we are now so far deep. We are generations deep into this cultural destruction of our people. So it's very hard for us to actually come to terms with the destruction of our own identities, and it's very hard for us to start to try to remedy the destruction within ourselves. I used to be a die-hard liberal myself. Most of my regular viewers know this, and it took me years to start thinking in a more European traditionalist fashion. It took me years to purge myself of all the liberal thinking, and then it took me years more to start thinking in a way that my ancestors, my great European ancestors, would be proud of. And that, right, this is how we should be thinking, right? The way I look at it, I should be thinking and acting in a way that my ancestors who performed the Reconquista would be happy with, the conquistadors would be happy with, the Spanish who lived under Franco and proudly served, they'd approve of how I think and how I behave. The many great heroes who fought on the side of the Axis in World War II. When I die, I would like to be on my deathbed and I would like to have lived an honourable enough life that I would be happy to go into the next world, and, you know, I'd like to be able to stand on my own 2 feet and meet my great ancestors and say, well, just look them in the eye and say, well, in my time on earth, I did my best to serve the European people, and I tried my best to uphold the European people's honour. This is, I recommend this. This is a very good way you should think. A true nationalist warrior should always think in terms of not just fighting, but also honour and death. How is your life that you're living today when you die? When you're on your deathbed, will you be satisfied with yourself that you lived a courageous and honourable life? This is how our great ancestors, our European ancestors, used to think, right? Liberalism. You will notice that liberalism is the complete antithesis of this. Liberalism essentially is very cowardly, and the whole point of a liberal existence is to lead a comfortable life without any conflict. So yeah, the whole point of being liberal is conflict avoidance at all costs, which is essentially cowardice. Okay, and then the pinnacle, the mark that you've lived a wonderful liberal life, is if your life's been entirely comfortable and you've barely had any existential challenges. You know, if you're surrounded by luxury and just, you know, friends and just sort of partying and being some goofy, kind of brainless, happy person, oh, well, that's all you need to be a liberal, right? A complete lack of conflict, cowardice and self-indulgence. Right? If you've done all those things in your life and succeeded, then you've been a wonderful liberal. And on your deathbed, you can I can die now happy because I had all this worldly success. You see, in the liberal world, that's, you know, being a self-indulgent coward is worldly success to the liberals. So the liberal system, the liberal way of thinking, and the liberal core narrative is directly opposed to the traditional European narrative of sacrifice, honour, hard work, not shying away from conflict. All of these things is what made our ancestors great and strong. And the whole point of a European nationalist life is you look forward to the day that you die, because you know you have done your best to be brave and honourable, so that as a man, when you die, your satisfaction is complete in life. So this is something we have to restore to the souls, the hearts, souls and the minds of our European men. Okay, this is part of a healthy nationalist European way of thinking. And if we get enough people thinking like this, we can form a healthy nationalist European order. Okay, worldly success means nothing without bravery, sacrifice and honour. And those things come first. Worldly success, which is liberalism, that comes second. That comes after those things. Okay, so now I've explained part of what we have to aim for as nationalists. I would like to go back to my thought experiment. So I was saying, if you, in my recent video, I was saying if you grab some liberal people from the nation of Ireland and they're sort of self-indulgent, green-haired, they've got sort of weird tattoos and face piercings, they've been churned out by the liberal system. If you transported them back to 1913, which isn't a long time ago, right? My granddad was born in 1918, so just right around the time my granddad was born, just before World War One. So if you got a group of modern Irish liberals, and you put them through a time machine and threw them into the city of Belfast in 1913. Now, the modern Irish liberal people would be so warped and so different from the Irish people of barely 100 years ago. Their whole personality, their worldview, their core narrative, their belief structure, everything would be so warped, so crazy, that the people of Belfast from just 100 years ago, basically, they wouldn't even know what to do with modern liberals. They wouldn't even accept them as Irish people anymore, right? What would happen most likely was if you put a group of modern liberals, Irish liberals, and sent them back to then in a time machine, was they'd end up very quickly locked up in insane asylums. They'd be there talking about why aren't you guys allowing in all these Africans and Muslims, and this is you guys are really homophobic, and why aren't you teaching your children to be homosexual in schools, and all this nonsense. And the old-fashioned Irish would just they would assume these people have been possessed by demons, which is a pretty honest appraisal of the situation. And they would just lock them in some kind of mental institution, and they'd most likely would call for priests to come sprinkle them with holy water and pray for the salvations of their souls. The old-fashioned Irish would see the modern Irish as a complete abomination. The old-fashioned Irish, if they knew what was going to happen to their country in 100 years, if you put a crystal ball there and just showed them Ireland in 100 years, they would, not only would they just be absolutely stunned and flabbergasted, the only conclusion they could come to was, well, did everyone in my nation become possessed by demons? Or something like, what went wrong, guys? Okay, so this shows you how fast this thought experiment I've just pointed out here. This shows you how fast the cultural genocide of the European people has happened. It's been a very sophisticated and subtle process of every generation since the end of World War One. There's been these subtle manipulations of the hearts, the minds, and the souls of the European people, that every generation these manipulations have increased exponentially. And now, essentially by the late 60s, the European people all over the world basically had most European people had almost no traditional European core narrative left within their hearts, their minds, or their souls. Very few people, right? And the late 60s and the hippie revolution. Yes, I'm sorry, boomers. I'm talking about you again. You liberal boomers. Look what you've done. Okay, so what you saw by the late 60s was enough corruption and damage had been done to the hearts and minds of European people basically the elites, the bankers, the communication industry moguls, the Jews, you name it, all those elites, they basically made a decision by the late 60s. The hippie boomer generation was going to be the generation that they completely erased all traditional European values from the culture. So that really was ground zero, right? The late 60s with the boomer cultural revolution was finally the day that the elites achieved what they wanted, which was to create a European man that was a tabula rasa. Okay, and this is a Latin word. It means they'd finally created a European man that was a blank slate. And if you, the elites figured if they created a man who was a blank slate, they could program him into being anything they wanted. Right, so if you go back, and I made this point in my recent video, I said if you go back 100 years ago, the European people, their identity and their core narrative was too deeply ingrained in them. If you went back and you grabbed an Ulster Scot from Belfast from 1913 and you tried to convince him to not be an Ulster Scot from Belfast, who was deeply Protestant, who was deeply proud of his country, his people, there was no way you could do that. And likewise, if you went down the south of Ireland and you went to Kilkenny and you found a Irish Catholic man and you tried to convince him not to be a Catholic Irish man from Kilkenny, there was no way you could ever achieve that. And that was only 100 years ago. These people were so deeply ingrained with their traditional values, and they were so deeply ingrained into their own culture, into their own personhood as a European person. There was you could not reprogram them. So the elites had to spend a number of generations just slowly chipping away and culturally genociding our people. And basically the cultural genocide of our people was finally completed in the late 60s. That was it. And this is the end result today. The cultural genocide has already happened. The fact that we're having this Kalugi invasion is just something. This is an extra detail that flows on from the fact we have been culturally genocided. So I'm going to continue this in round 2. Thanks for listening. God bless. Deus Volt.